At the heart of one of the most baffling disappearances in recent memory, a 19-year-old college student named Bryce Laspisa begins acting strangely, giving away all personal possessions. On a late summer night, after making a series of unsettling phone calls, he drives into the remote darkness and vanishes without a trace. So, what in the world happened to Bryce Laspisa? Bryce Laspisa was 19 years old, an only child, and by all accounts, he was outgoing, artistic, and full of potential. He had just finished his first year studying graphic and industrial design at Sierra College in Northern California. Life seemed good, but just beneath the surface, something was beginning to unravel. A few weeks into Bryce's sophomore year, sometime in August of 2013, he began drinking heavily, far more than he ever had before. And he started abusing a prescription stimulant called Vyvanse, a drug not unlike amphetamines, especially if misused by someone without ADHD. Those close to him at the time said he used Vyvanse mainly to stay awake through the night, playing video games until the sun came up. It was around this time that Bryce's demeanor began to shift, from outgoing and friendly to skittish and anxious. On August 27th, the first signs of trouble appeared. Bryce texted his girlfriend, telling her that she would be better off without him, effectively ending their long-term relationship. On the same day, Bryce gave away valuable personal possessions to his close friend and roommate, Sean Dixon. Some of these items included his Xbox, the same console he had spent countless hours binge gaming on, and his diamond earrings, which had been passed down to him by his mother. Sean immediately refused the gifts and questioned Bryce, asking why he was giving away such important belongings so suddenly, but Bryce couldn't give a clear answer. His final text to Sean would read, "I love you, bro. Seriously, you are the best person I've ever met. You saved my soul." The following day, August 28th, Bryce went to visit Kim to officially end things with her in person. Taken aback by Bryce's sudden breakup and increasingly abnormal behavior, Kim, Bryce's now ex-girlfriend, took his car keys and called his mother, Karen, to inform her of her son's concerning actions. This news troubled Karen deeply because that same day, she had also received a call from Sean Dixon, who warned her about Bryce's strange behavior. Karen instructed Bryce to stay where he was. She told him she would be on the first flight to Sierra College to come and get him. But Bryce convinced his mother to tell Kim to return his car keys. Reluctantly, Kim agreed. Bryce would convince his mother by telling her, "I have a lot to talk to you about, but it's better if I do it in person." He was supposed to drive home on campus that evening to prepare for his long journey back to his hometown of Laguna Niguel. But Bryce Laspisa would never see home again. It's August 29th, around 11 a.m. when Karen receives an automated phone call from her insurance company. The call was regarding roadside assistance, a gas refill request made in a small town called Buttonwillow. And the vehicle? A beige Toyota Highlander, the same car Bryce had been driving. Now alarmed, the Laspisas began calling Bryce repeatedly, but each call went unanswered. Unable to reach him, they contacted Sean Dixon, Bryce's roommate, hoping for answers. To their shock, Sean told them that Bryce never returned home on campus last night. Bryce had attempted to drive 8 hours straight through the night, from his college in Northern California to Laguna Niguel, but ran out of gas a little more than midway through. Now deeply concerned, Michael Laspisa, Bryce's father, checked Bryce's bank activity. That's when he found a receipt. It was for an auto repair shop in Buttonwillow, a remote town roughly 3 hours north of Laguna Niguel. Karen quickly called the shop, and a man named Christian answered the phone. He tells Karen that, yes, he had seen her son. Bryce looked healthy, was polite, and didn't mention where he was going. Sensing Karen's worry, Christian offered to drive back out to the rest stop where he had last seen Bryce, though he was skeptical that Bryce would still be there since several hours had passed already. Karen gratefully accepted the offer. And to Christian's surprise, Bryce was still there, sitting in the exact same spot as before. As Christian approached the vehicle, he noticed something unsettling. Bryce was completely still, almost like he was in a trance. Christian knocked on the window, and Bryce greeted him kindly and, strangely, showed no signs of distress. Christian called Karen and reassured her that Bryce was safe, then handed the phone to Bryce. What was said between them remains unclear, but it's noted that Bryce was dismissive of his mother's concerns. After the call, Christian wished Bryce well and left him there to continue on his way home. It had been over 4 hours since Bryce last spoke with his parents. By now, he should have arrived home well before 3:30. To make matters worse, Bryce still does not pick up any calls from his parents. The silence is deafening. The Laspisas have had enough. They contact local law enforcement and fill out a missing persons report. The first step police took was to triangulate Bryce's phone using nearby cell phone towers. And to everyone's shock, his phone was still in Buttonwillow, in the exact same location he had been hours earlier. Police are dispatched to the rest area and find him sitting there in a beige Highlander. They vigorously question Bryce, as well as search his car and give him a field sobriety test. But all results would come back clean. Officers noticed Bryce was apprehensive when asked, or rather forced, to call his parents. He calls his parents with reluctance and again dismisses their concerns. Despite the unusual behavior, Bryce had committed no crime, so officers had no legal grounds to detain him. They informed the Laspisas of his condition and left Bryce there, once again, on his own. After a long day at work, Christian was finally ready to clock out. Aside from the strange encounter with Bryce earlier, it had been a pretty uneventful day. Out of habit, he checked his phone and noticed a missed call from Karen Laspisa. He quickly returned the call, and when Karen answered, Christian asked the obvious question. Did Bryce make it home? She tells him of the continued lack of communication from her son, and how even law enforcement had gotten involved with no answers to show for it. Now confused and concerned, Christian asked, Why isn't he home yet? And to Christian's astonishment, Karen has no satisfying answer for him. Being the good Samaritan he is, he offers to check in on Bryce again. She appreciates his concern, but politely declined his offer to check in. She was hopeful, certain even, that Bryce must be on his way home by now. But something about it just didn't sit right. Despite Karen's insistence, the situation gnawed at him after the phone call. It didn't make sense. Why would a perfectly healthy young man sit alone for hours, ignoring calls from the people who love him? So Christian decided to take one last look. No expectations, no obligation, just instinct. And when he pulled up to the same rest stop, Bryce was there, just sitting there. Christian couldn't believe his eyes. He approached Bryce again and asked, Why are you still here? Once more, Bryce gave no good answer. Determined, Christian gently but firmly urged him to head home. He reminded Bryce of everything his parents had done just to make sure he was okay. This time, Bryce starts his car and moves. He got onto the highway and Christian follows close behind for a while. Eventually, Christian called the Laspisas and informed them Bryce was finally heading home. A little over an hour from Laguna Niguel, Christian felt confident Bryce could make it the rest of the way on his own, and leaves him, wishing him farewell. The Laspisas were finally on the phone with Bryce again, but once more, he became vague and distant. He told them he was tired, and that he'd been awake for nearly 24 hours, and it was now 2 a.m. Not wanting to push him, the Laspisas told him it was okay to pull over and get some rest. They expected a call from him the next morning, once he woke up from his nap. And the next morning, they would hear a knock at the door. The Laspisas have barely slept. They're on edge, waiting for their son to walk through the door. Every passing second feels like an eternity. And then, a knock at the door. They rush to open it, ready to give their son an earful for their trouble. But it's not Bryce. It's a police officer. Their hearts sink. The officer explains that a Toyota Highlander registered in their name has been found wrecked in a ravine near Castaic Lake. It appears the crash may have been a deliberate attempt to end Bryce's own life. The Laspisas stand in stunned silence. Nothing could have prepared them for this moment. Bryce Laspisa was not in the vehicle. The car was empty. His laptop, his phone, and other personal belongings were still inside, but there was no trace of Bryce himself. The rear windshield had been shattered, suggesting that was the escape route from the vehicle. Authorities would launch a full-scale investigation and search operation. But aside from a random burnt body unrelated to Bryce and a dead end at a nearby truck stop, nothing conclusive ever came from their efforts. Speculation has since run wild. Some believe Bryce truly did intend to end his own life for reasons he wouldn't reveal. Others think the dead end at the truck stop suggests he may have chosen to walk away from his old life, to start again, somewhere else, as someone else. This case serves as a poignant reminder of the importance of mental health awareness and the need for open, judgment-free conversations. Bryce's story remains one of the most haunting disappearances in modern history. Hey guys, thank you so much for passing by again. It really means a lot to see you here. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It took way longer than I thought it would originally. I thought this would be like a week and a half process. Ended up taking almost 3 weeks, but I think I'm pretty proud of the final product. I hope you guys are noticing a slight improvement here and there in between my first few videos and where I'm at now. So I really hope you guys enjoy this video. I like the way it came out, honestly. I could say I'm getting better at the YouTube thing, so stick around, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.